Hey everyone, today I want to talk about 4 great tips that you can get from just the first chapter of the 4th edition Dungeon Master's Guide. So let's take a look. This first chapter is called How to Be a DM, but honestly the scope of it is much more broad than that. It covers things about how to play the game and the different roles that players have and different types of games you can have, setting table rules. So there's a lot of ground that it covers. The first section in it is about the gaming group, and here it talks about the typical setup of a group where you have about 4 to 6 people and a little bit of information about what happens if you don't have that many, if you've got fewer or more than that, and how that could impact the game. It's got some information about what a dungeon master is and just a little highlight of some of the things that they're generally responsible for. The bulk of it is covered with things that you need really to play the game, and obviously you need a place to play, you need the rule books, you need dice, you need paper and pencils. It has a little reference to D&D Insider here, which is something that was part of 4th edition but no longer is around. But it's a good overview to get you started as the first part of this book in learning about what D&D is. The next section gets into the players themselves, and it really goes into player motivations and the different types of players that you're going to have at the table. And I really like that it goes into what each type is. So you have an actor, you have an explorer, you have power gamers, and what those types of players might do. And the really important part is that as a DM, it has a reference to say how you engage this type of player. So all the different types, it's got a thing about how you engage with them. So if you have the actor is a player who really likes to have a personality to their character. And when it's their turn, they're generally going to be trying to act out the role of their character. They're probably going to be talking, if not in a special voice, but they're going to be talking as their character at least. And so what do you do with that as a DM? You want to make sure you live into that, provide really good role-playing encounters. You want to emphasize the character's personality, and you want to put elements into the campaign that allows that player to bring out those things. And it has a couple things to look out for to make sure that it doesn't get too disruptive if they're trying to be in character and it's maybe causing problems with other people who aren't necessarily an actor in their role. So it's really helpful, and it has that information for all the different player types that they list here. And I think the message that you get with that, and this is the first real good takeaway I have from this, is let the players play. Don't expect that all the players have to fit into some narrow vision of what you think or what someone else thinks the player should be and what they should do. Everyone has a different reason for playing the game. Everyone has different expectations. And the key is to let them do those things and lean into it. And obviously you want to be careful that none of that becomes disruptive or it does anything that's going to interfere with somebody else's enjoyment of the game. But by allowing the players to play the game they want to play, it's going to be much more enjoyable for them. Everyone will be much more engaged in the campaign and just have a much better time. The second part of this section talks about the different character roles that you have and some of the backgrounds that you have for characters and different information about campaigns, and provide some additional tips on that. It's all really good information as well. Then you get into the Dungeon Master, and it talks about what a Dungeon Master is and what a Dungeon Master isn't, and different DMing styles, much the same way that it had the differences about the different types of players. It talks about different types of DMs as well. And it goes in a little bit about the different types of games that you can have, whether you're going to run with a single DM, that's the same DM every single week, or if you're going to swap out and go with different DMs, so one week one person's DMing and the next week someone else is. Are you going to run a campaign that's ongoing, or are you going to do something that's more episodic where each session is a one-off game? And it provides the pros and cons for each of those. I think the key takeaway from this section is a little sidebar that's down here from James Wyatt talking about when he joined Wizards of the Coast and how he felt uncomfortable at first running a campaign for his coworkers. And I think it's a message that is true for everybody who's ever been a DM, and that is that you don't need to know everything to be a DM. It's okay to go into it and not be an expert on the rules. You don't need to have a PhD in Dungeons and Dragons to be able to be a DM. The DM is really there to move the story along and help make some rulings on things, but really as a group, as the leader of the group. And if there's questions about things, then those things will come up and you'll talk about them as a group and make decisions and move on. As a DM, I think as long as you're interested in story and flexible enough to allow the players to help guide that story, then you have what it takes to be a DM. All of the rulings and the mechanics of the game, that's something that you can work out at the table, and you don't need to be intimidated by that. And I think that's really the key message of this particular section. And the final section you have here talks about table rules. And this is kind of almost a precursor to what we now call a session 0, where it talks about the different things you want to establish up front. The very first thing it talks about is respect for each other and not getting into arguments and how you're going to settle disputes and things like that. Then you talk about what's going to happen if somebody is distracted by something else going on while you're trying to play the game. This is more important now with the advent of smartphones and things where people are always on their phone during the game or something. You know, what's the rules about that? Is there going to be food? Character name I thought was interesting. Is that if you have a group that consists of characters named Sithis and Trevok and Anastriana and Calron, and then someone else comes along and has their character named Bob, is that something that's going to be distracting for the group? I've had tables like that, and it's worked out fine, but other people on their tables, they may not be happy about that. They might want to be more into the fantasy world and have characters that are appropriately named. And there's other things about what to do if players are missing for one particular week, whether dice are going to be rolled behind a screen, and how you're going to deal with rules disagreements. So a lot of really good information that would just be a session 0 right now. And I think the key thing here is that D&D is a social game. Each person at the table has a responsibility to the group, and it's important that everyone in the group knows what to expect and lives into those expectations. The conflicts that we have happen when one person deviates from what everyone else was expecting. So by talking about the rules up front, you can help to avoid any misunderstandings. And I think that's a great takeaway from this section. And that's really the bulk of this section of the book. I think the main message that you get from this and the overarching theme that I see in this, and it's actually mentioned, is that the right way to play D&D is the way that you and your players agree on and enjoy. So don't let anybody tell you that you're doing it wrong or that's not what D&D is. D&D is what you want it to be, and it actually says it in this section of the book. And I think that's a great lesson for what D&D is for everybody. Let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you have to say about those particular items. Did I miss anything from that section? Do you have any different thoughts on where they went with it? Let me know down in the comments. Please subscribe to my newsletter. You can get a free one-shot adventure when you do. The link is down in the description. Please subscribe to the channel. And until next time, take care.